comfortable sharing. And then, after service, drop that card off at our Next Steps area for a gift that's our way to say we're glad you've joined us today. And that's it. Later this week, one of our leaders will connect with you. An incredible way to stay connected with our community, receive incredible resources and opportunities, is by downloading our app. From events and workshops to message notes, sermons, and weekend set lists, you can find all you need in one place. Download the app today on any mobile phone app store. Fountain Springs Kids is dedicated to partnering with parents to lead children to become fully devoted followers of Christ. Through age-specific lessons, activities, and small groups, your children, 6 weeks to 5th grade, learn about biblical truths and real-life application. Don't miss this great opportunity to help your children learn more about God's love. Check out FS Kids this weekend. Wherever you are in life, you have a purpose. And we hope today we can help you along that journey, experiencing and connecting with God in a real and authentic way.
Well, hey guys, welcome to Fountain Springs. Happy New Year. We're so glad you're here with us today. If you would, go ahead and stand with us as we sing a few songs together. We're going to start the year out right by singing about what God has done in our lives and how we should respond to that. So help us out. Put your hands together. Let's sing this out.
Your mercies are new. You're already chasing with relentless pursuit. You have my attention. You have my whole life. I don't wanna
Your love, it comes with no conditions. You give us your whole heart. My home is in the blood of Jesus. I know who I am because of who you are. I know who I am because of who you are. Sing it out. I know who I am. I know who I am. Your love, it comes with no conditions. You give us your whole heart. My heart is in the blood of Jesus. I know who I am because of who you are. I know who I am. Well, I don't know what last year looked like for you, or what this coming year, what you're expecting God to do and how He's going to move in your life. But I do know that God is faithful in every season, and we can depend on that, and we can put our confidence in that as a church. So I just want us to believe that even more as we continue to sing. Let's sing this together. Walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet. Is it true? Sing your promise. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed me yet. I know the night will last. Your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praise again. Jesus, you're still enough. Keep me within your love. Oh, my heart will sing praise again. Sing it again. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. sing your promise. Come on, church. Yeah. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. Never failed me yet. You've never failed me yet, and I never will forget. You've never failed me yet, and I never will
Bring it up, please. The storm surrounding me, let it break. At your name, still, all the sea is still, the rage you need is still, every wave. At your name, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, breathe, call these bones to live, call these lungs to sing once again. I will praise Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear. Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. Go ahead and have a seat.
I love that. I love declaring that Jesus is greater than the darkness. That Jesus, as we enter this new year, helps us overcome fear. And just the reality of what that means for us. And we hope that you had a great Christmas and a new year. Maybe it was awesome. Maybe there were some struggles. Maybe it was just flat out weird. But one of the things I know is that we've continued to celebrate what God's doing at Christmas Eve services. We saw 418 people make a decision to say, I am enough, and God is enough in my life. There's one of those amazing hurdles, I believe, that takes place in the course of our life of thinking about so many times, am I enough? Am I enough? And we get bogged down with it. We get flustered by it. But if we really truly grasp the reality of what God says, that I am enough for you and that I am greater than anything that you have, it's powerful. But it can't land there. It can't just be like, hey, you're enough. Go on with your life. There's a next step that's got to take place. And I believe that's where, whether you've made that decision or you're going to make that decision sometime in the next weeks or days, is that next step is so vital for us as we walk into relationship with Jesus, to begin to trust and begin to understand his love for us in a better way, to get excited literally about who he is in our life, and taking the next step of serving or being in a group or giving or just being more involved here at church, or taking it to your house and allowing your family to see that God is doing something in your life, or taking it to work. Because it just can't stay right here. It just can't stay in a moment. Your name can't stay on a board, and you be okay with that. God calls us to something greater, and he calls us to something more, and that next step is vital as we learn to love him and learn to understand how he desires us to walk that out. And so I just want to take a second to pray for that next step for us, for you. And I would just ask that you would join me in that time. Would you bow with me? God, for each and every individual that's here this morning, for the opportunity that we have all together to declare songs of praise, that you are greater than the darkness, you overcome every fear. Man, some of us need that this morning. Some of us need that reminder that you are with us, and that even though some of us made that decision a couple weeks ago, we need to be reminded that we're enough again this morning, and that you're enough in our life, and that is so true. And so as we endeavor to take next steps, as we find that boldness in our life, I pray that we would act on it, and we would just say, listen, enough is enough, and I need to take a step of being involved and trusting God more and allowing him to direct and orchestrate the things that are going on in my life. God, help us. Help us surrender to that. Help us trust that. And help us believe that you're going to do some awesome stuff in this year to come. Trusting that you are that God, and it's amazing. Thank you that we can declare songs of praise. Thank you that we get in a moment, look in your word and get challenged. I pray that we'd be receptive to that. God, maybe it's exactly what we need today. Maybe it's just a reminder that your word is enough. So we love you, and I thank you for today, and we ask all this in your amazing name. Amen.
If you've made the decision to follow Christ, baptism is one of the most meaningful next steps you can take. The whole church celebrates with you as you make a public declaration of your faith in Jesus, to learn and grow in your relationship with him as the church does the same. Celebrate with all of us at Fountain Springs during the next baptism weekend. If you have any questions or want to sign up, you can go online or feel free to talk with one of our volunteers in the Next Steps area who are here to help.
Hey Fountain Springs, I wanted to take a moment to celebrate with you how our generosity has affected the kids ministry over the past year. Every weekend, we have close to 500 kids who come to hear about Jesus. And every opportunity that we have to partner with the parents and connect with a child is important, because we know the best way to shape a child's character and faith is through small, consistent deposits over time. And those deposits add up to provide incredible momentum in a kid's life. In fact, in the last year, we have seen 35 kids make decisions to follow Jesus, and 37 kids publicly declare that decision through baptism. Your generosity paves the way for those moments to happen, but we're not done yet. There are still over 17,000 youth in the Black Hills who don't know who Jesus is, and we believe that God wants us to do something about it. There are 2 steps that you can take today. The first is to sign up to be part of our kids' team. The best chance a child may have to see God personally is to see God through you. Whether smiling and giving high fives on our check-in team is your thing, or learning about Bible stories alongside our preschoolers seems more your style, we know that God can use the gifts and passions He placed in you to make an impact. The second way to get involved is to give financially. Through your generosity, you can make an impact in what God is doing through our experiences on the weekend and beyond. There are 3 ways to give. You can give online, you can text to give, or you can place cash or check in any of the blue boxes located in the lobby. We hope you'll take one of these steps and join us in our mission to show kids and their families who Jesus is.
David, our lead pastor, will be up shortly to share today's message. So if you've checked your child into our kids ministry, be sure to have your phone on vibrate just in case they need to get a hold of you. Also, if you have a child with you and they're getting a bit restless, we have a room just off the lobby where they can roam around freely and you can still share in the experience with us. Thank you to all of you who serve weekly, give generously, and pray consistently. God truly is using you to make an impact as we all go through life together, showing the Black Hills who Jesus is.
Okay, quick poll here. Who is sad that 2018 is over? That's what I thought. Okay, who is happy that 2018 is over? Okay. Some of you just don't want to participate with Pastor David's sermon. It's fine. Well, I don't know what you think about it, but, well, I kind of do now. You're either ambiguous about it or you're like, I want to move on. And I don't want to dwell a ton on 2018 because, well, let me just bring you up to speed. It's 2019. And I don't want to say that, but I think oftentimes by a show of hands, some of us are like, I'm so done with 2018, I want to forget it. I think that's what sometimes we're tempted to do. We go through a season, whether you loved it or hated it, and you're like, I'm so done with that, like, let's forget it. And I think that's dangerous. And so every year now as a church, on this particular weekend, we go after multiple things. In fact, this sermon actually has 2 parts. Now, don't worry, that does not mean it's going to be twice as long. It just has 2 parts. And I want to teach you, if you don't already know, how to move on. Because some of us do not know how to move on. And I want to show you something. So here's some advice. To go after what can happen, we must acknowledge what did happen. This is going to be therapy for some of us. This is where if you're done with 2018 and you're like, let's go. I think nowadays we live in a culture that we try to forget the bad, we take pictures of the good, and we just keep going. And we don't stop. And so I'm going to kind of, I'm going to force a stop. I'm going to make sure that we don't just go full speed ahead and we neglect that God actually did things in 2018. God gives us wisdom. I'm going to show you this in Isaiah. Remember the things I have done in the past. Now, I thought that we were like, okay, we're talking about the good things. Remember, he doesn't differentiate there. Remember the things I've done in the past, like the good and the bad. For I alone am God. I am God and there is none like me. Here's what I would tell you is the danger that I see in our lives. If we refuse or neglect to remember the things God has done, we start to think we're God. You might not actually call yourself, I suggest that you not call yourself that, but I think a lot of us start to behave like we're the ones in control. Like we're the ones that are the true, like we got all the power, all the authority, all the control, and See, that's why I think he's saying, hey, remember what I've done, because you're going to be tempted to think that you can do everything. So we're not going to do that. I don't want you going into 2019 going, it's all up to me. So if we continue our therapy session, let me give you one more tip. When we don't intentionally try to remember, we accidentally forget. Some of us are blaming age on this one. That's not true. What I would tell you is if you don't actually have a moment in life where you stop and say, you know what just happened, what they said, what they did, how that played out was awesome, and you don't figure out a way to lock it down, write it down, remember it, take a picture, then I think you're going to accidentally forget it. If you think about it, think what's easier to remember, the bad things. It's easy to remember the bad things. It's when your expectations were broken in a bad way. But the good things, there's been so many good things that if you and I don't say intentionally, like, okay, let's stop here, let's acknowledge that, I think we begin to wonder, does God still do things? Does God like me? Does God see me? And so we're going to do this just briefly. We're going to make sure that we don't go into 2019 without acknowledging how incredible God is. We had an anchor word in 2018, the word awe. Let me give you a definition. This is what we shared all last year. An overwhelming feeling of reverence, admiration, and fear. For those of you who freak out about the fear, this is like the good fear, the authoritative fear. But just so you know, in 2018, you had awe in someone. You had reverence or admiration, at least for someone, and awe. Awe's a big deal. And we talked about even last year how our problems usually stem from awe problems. Oftentimes we get in awe of the wrong things. At least it started maybe in middle school when we found the one. Right? So you know that feeling of awe, right? That feeling of awe, well, we talked about awe, and it was our anchor word because we wanted to make sure that we as a church were in awe of God. It's okay to be in awe of a lot of things, but we should always be in awe of God. So let's talk about that. In 2018, we had 3 locations as a church. Now, if you're brand new, you're like, 3 locations, like McDonald's. Yes, like McDonald's. Just without the Big Macs, unfortunately. So we have 3 locations. If you don't know this, and I'll briefly just spend some time here, we have a location at a local prison here in Rapid City, RCMU. I even got to be there for Christmas, and you got to know God is doing things in our local prison. It was incredible. And they're actually meeting today. Every Sunday, we have a location at the prison where they worship, they hear this sermon, they spend time together. It's incredible. And the Bible specifically gives us instructions. Do not forget the people who are in prison. So we have not. So we have a location there every week. We have a location on the east side of Rapid City, across from the fairgrounds. We call it the East location. Spent a lot of time on that. It's incredible. If you've never been there, if you live close there, you ought to give it a swing. Then we have a West location called the West location. We just don't want to confuse anybody. Because you're like, what's it called? Well, where is it? And that just helps a bit of it. But we have 3 locations. And I want to tell you something about the 3 locations. You may not know this because you don't go to all of them. Listen, every single location in 2018 had multiple people who had never been to church before in their entire lives. All 3. Now, all 3 locations also had people decide to follow Jesus for the first time ever in their lives. And if you wonder, is it worth a church to say, we're going to do things a bit out of the ordinary and have multiple locations across an area, it appears to be God uses it. And so, that's how we went about things. And let me explain, maybe more in detail, what we did at the 3 locations. First, we gathered. Gathering is normal. It's traditional as a church. We get together, and we gathered in many ways. Every weekend, we gather. We gather usually as a big group and small groups all over the place. Some of the ways we gathered was Easter. You may have been at Easter just by this picture. You know, the kids had a lot more fun than we did. Anytime you get bounce houses, I always am told I can't play on them, but I think they're incredible. So Easter was incredible. A lot of times that's a first kind of goal for many people. Like, hey, that's when I first was a part of Fountain Springs. Over 7,000 people came, and we got to tell them who Jesus is. Hundreds of people decided to follow Jesus. It's absolutely incredible. But maybe you weren't around for Easter. Maybe you were Christmas. Christmas, I would tell you, because yes, I've been at both Easter and Christmas. Christmas was unique in the best of senses. What happened at our Christmas services, I would tell you, was abnormal in the sense of the presence of God and what God did in our lives. I don't have words for it yet. Just to give you and I know we're not a numbers-oriented church, but you need to know that more people decided to follow Jesus at Christmas than at Easter. A lot of times we think, oh, Easter, there's so many people. Something's changing. And God did incredible things at Christmas. Those are gatherers. We gather all over the place. There's a gathering place that's weird to some of us. I know this. I'm gonna like address the elephant in the room that's not in the room. It's online. There's churches now online. Now I know somebody like, yeah, see, our world is just going down. Church has now gone to the internet, and I don't know why I changed my voice now, but anyways. We do church online. Like we do church here in person, and there's people, online people, in their PJs. It's awkward talking to you in your PJs. But we do online, and I know some of us are like, yeah, I don't know if I agree with that online thing. Well, I would tell you this. Here's what I think we can have some common ground. It is definitely not the best option. It is definitely not your final option. But we're kind of a church, listen, that anyone and everyone matters, correct? So we should be willing to go wherever people are to help them know who Jesus is. So yes, online is not a final destination. In fact, I know some of you are in the room, but I need to talk to the online people. If this is your location, but you can access a physical location, you need to change your behavior. And you need to be a part because you need people. We all would agree we all need people. People are important, people are critical, and you oftentimes need people in your lives that will help encourage you and sharpen you. And most of the folks online are watching by themselves, most of them, and they can't access things, okay? But you see, not everyone can access a location. If you skip geography class, let me help you. This is not us. These are other countries. I would be a great teacher. These are the other places. This is us here. The reason this is bigger, because we just wanted you to understand exactly where we're at. Here's what's interesting. People are watching from 44 states. So I'm going to try to find out those 6 states. I already have guesses of which ones they are, but that's another conversation. People all over the world are hearing who Jesus is. So if you disagree with the online thing, please don't disagree. Those people need to know who Jesus is. So let's show them. But let's also understand that a great tool can also be mismanaged, can it? You can misuse a hammer. So let's make sure that if you can access a group of people, go to a location. But I think this is incredible, what God has done. I think the internet, if used correctly, can get the gospel out so much faster and better. We didn't just have the big groups and the weird online stuff. We had groups that meet in person. And I know some of us like, so you get in a circle, you hold hands, and you cry together. No, not my group. We have coffee together, typically, but the groups get together because you and I understand that we do need people, but even we need encouragement from other people. Have you ever gone through something and been like, I'm not exactly sure what decision to make, or I need help with this decision, or I'm processing something in life? You need other people. And the groups are like, we already know how to do that. They share things with each other, encourage each other, sharpen each other. And we gathered in groups, small groups, medium-sized groups, large groups. And we didn't just gather, though. Let's go further. We invested. You don't just gather because, church has been doing that for years, centuries, just gathering and sitting in seats. And we got to do more than just gather. We need to invest and invest in strategic ways. So we as a church have strategic ways about going about this. The kids, you've heard about the kids ministry. The average was 445, but we're now over 500 kids on a weekend getting to know who Jesus is. If you don't know this, I'm pastor's kid. 4th generation pastor in a row. I can tell you that the majority of churches in America have less than 5 kids even in the church. So you need to know God's given us not only a really cool thing. Can we call this a responsibility? I think it's time to call it a responsibility. Here's what I love. 129 people have owned the responsibility. So I'm going to take some privilege because I'm on stage and I have the microphone. I just want, if you're a part of the kids ministry, I'm not going to make you stand up because I know you hate that. So while you stay seated, I just want you to know from Katie and I, we are so grateful for you because our kids needed you. Katie and I, yes, I'm a pastor, but we need you to help our kids know who Jesus is. So for those of you who have just invested in our own kids, thank you so much. And I know there are other parents, yeah. There's other parents that feel the same. And if you haven't put your kids in the kids ministry, you ought to. I mean, I need it, so you probably need it too. Students, we invested in lives. They grow up. I'm trying to keep my kids from growing up. It's not working. But they do grow up, and I would tell you, I think teenagers get a bad rap. Sometimes I even give them a bad rap. But I'm going to tell you something. Here's what I think about this current young generation. I think they're going to be one of the best generations ever. If you and I are involved in their lives, I think they love people better than previous generations have loved people. I think they're more generous than previous generations. I think some major good change can happen through them. And we're seeing almost a couple hundred students during the week gather just to hear about Jesus, be in community, have friendships, good, healthy friendships. It's awesome. We invested in them. We continue to. Love Week's another way we invested. If you aren't familiar with Love Week, let me just break it down this way. Churches for a long time have done missions trips all over the world. Different countries, gone to different places, and brought groups of 10 to 15 people to go do things in places that need things, right? That's normal. That's what a church missions trip is. Well, we thought, well, let's do missions trips, and we do missions trips all over, but let's make sure we do missions trips where we are. I know it's like, well, yeah, but can we admit that for a long time the church has been known more about inside the walls than outside the walls? And we thought, well, what if we just disregarded our walls? And so we started a missions trip to our own town, our own place. It even spread to the Black Hills. And here's what's cool. You take over 1,000 people who are saying, I'll do that. Because instead of taking 10 people, it's cheaper. Take over 1,000 people, sleep in your own bed at night. Come on. Look what happens in 1 week's time. 1 week's time. What if more of this happened? I know that's what you're wondering. What if we did this more? Well, I'm glad you're wondering that because we also have Saturday Serve. Every second Saturday of every month, we do Love Week. It's where we look around the area and we get involved in organizations. We help where help is needed, so you don't have to wait till Love Week. You can invest now. We must be a church that doesn't just have addresses in our town, but we must have influence and impact as well. We did a new thing in 2018 that, again, goes back to the online world and weird. Right Now Media. If you aren't familiar with this, I'll tell you about this. This is a library online. Now you're like, oh, then I'm not going to that. No, there's tons and tons and tons of video teaching about different books of the Bible. If you've ever felt like you don't know the Bible the way you ought to, why not let someone in a creative way teach you in 10-minute and 20-minute segments about how to understand the Bible? If you're wondering, how do I parent? How do I do this marriage thing? How do I run my finances? It's all there, and guess what? It's free for you. The church foots the bill so you and your friends and your family can just go to the website, get a login, and access all that. And they estimate over 200 new things get uploaded every month. This is incredible. There's a whole kids section. Our kids love it. Netflix, you can give them Netflix, and they can go the wrong places on Netflix. This is a great alternative. It's pretty cool. Now, also, I need to tell you, we gathered and we invested, but in 2018, we messed up. I'm just going to tell you that. We messed up. If you need a perfect church, this will be the last time we see each other. Because we're not. I'm going to make missteps and choices I shouldn't make. I'm going to say things that are offensive on stage that my wife will later say, you should not have said that. And I will be like, you are right. There are things that we did not do perfectly, and I'm just going to tell you that right now, and this year we will do things that are not perfect. That's how people are. Now, here's what stinks, and they didn't teach me this in college or seminary, nothing. They said, David, they didn't say this. David, when you preach and talk and do things, there's going to be a video camera running, and it's always going to capture everything you do. So for your pleasure. Not mine. We just gather a little bit. There's a lot more. There's many things that I'm like, you will not share that. We put together just a little bit of a blooper reel of the moments that were far, far from perfect. Take a look. We can learn from other folks. We can actually learn how to lead our kids, how to raise them up, what to teach them, and how to encourage them. It's all a massive library, accessible.
Let's pray. Dear God, we thank you. We love you. Amen.
I'm Chris. Boom. I'm Chris. Amen. Well, hey, we've had a great time of singing. Now we're going to go out and check a message from David. There's too much pauses. I don't like that either. See, I hate coming out of that prayer going right into that, but that's all right. Let's do it.
Flawed. It's a funny word when you just say it by itself. Flawed. Sorry. Flawed.
Well, hey guys, welcome to Fountain Springs. If you would, stand with us as we sing a few songs together.
Much information as you feel comfortable sharing. And then, Merry Christmas, everyone. Service is just about to start. There are a few things we want to let you know before we...
Yeah.
The ladies, man.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, that's nice.
Flawed. Let's move on. I'll come back to flawed.
What's cool is this? I heard that and I was just like, what's that? What's that noise?
Flawed. Flawed. It just sounds so stupid. It sounds so stupid. Flawed.
So now you're like, flawed, that is weird. We're not a perfect church, which is beautiful. Because we gathered, we invested, and we messed up. But I want to show you something, what God did, sometimes in spite of us. That's the amount of names that we have of people who decided to follow Jesus in 2018. And so, yeah. I think a lot of times we think we have to be perfect for God to use us. Oh, no, you don't. And I think we as a church, before we jump into 2019, God did things. And I believe that God continues to do things. So our anchor word for 2018 was awe. And I think it's easy. It's easy to admire God for what he did in 2018. But let's turn the page. Let's go to 2019, and I want to show you our anchor word for this year. It's just simple, the word abide. The word abide is how it's going to fuel us. If you want to know what's going to fuel a lot of the sermons and how we go about things is abide. I think we need to move and keep all in our lives and move into what does abide mean. Now, let me give you a definition. There's many definitions. Here's one that I think that fits well. Continue without fading. What a good time to talk about this, because many of us have made goals and resolutions. They're like, yeah, and you've already quit. I heard the other day in the gym that it's 12 days. Literally, we were like, oh, there's a lot of people in the gym. Like one guy said, just give it 12 days. I'm like, whoa. I mean, whoa. And that's why many of us have stopped doing resolutions, not because we think we're dumb. We're just like, we're not going to do it. It's just continue without fading. To lock onto something and say, not only am I in this, I'm not going to fade from it. Can we admit that that's how it all plays out? You and I make daily choices, and oftentimes we want this, but when we fade down, we turn down the volume, we pull back a little bit, we lower the intensity. See, I don't think things typically fall apart in one day. I could tell you in my experience, relationships, marriages, friendships, even work, rarely has just this one moment. There was a fade somewhere. Someone or some people began to pull back slowly. We skip something. We stop doing something one time, and then we add to it. We faded. To continue without fading. We're going to learn this all year long. I'm going to press into this. How do we actually not only commit to something and lock onto the good things in life, how do we not fade? Well, let me give you the first step in this. If you don't want to quit, pay attention to the fade. If you don't want to quit what you think of, this needs to be in my life, this person or this job or this thing or this character trait or this decision, this healthy whatever, if you don't want to quit it, don't be so worried about the quitting moment. Pay attention to the daily fade. And here's what's cool. When it comes to you and I, we need to know that Jesus talked about this. Let me bring this into you. I am the vine, I'm the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes it so that it may bear more fruit. I brought an example, and don't worry, no trees were harmed in the gathering of this branch. But I mean, that just talked about a branch, so let me help. I mean, you might not like grapes. I'm sure you like wine, but let's just move on. Here we go. What he just said was this, just so we're clear, is that you and I are the branch, and he's the vine, or he's the tree. And he said that you and I need to pay attention to not necessarily all of these things, the green, which is awesome, or the fruit, or whatever, like this is good. But we know that this comes from what you're attached to. This is abiding. Let me ask you a question. What are you attached to? Maybe for you need to go, okay, 2018, here's what I did just by history. What does your history tell you that you were attached to? Some of us would say, my phone. That's what I was attached to, right? But I think you can go a bit more serious and a bit more real that some of us were like, I'm not sure I was attached to anything. Or maybe it was a boyfriend, girlfriend, a job, a goal. And I find it fascinating that Jesus brings up this whole abiding thing, this whole what are you attached to? Where are you getting your fuel from? Some of us, I would say, if we would be open, that 2018, a storm knocked you off. It really wasn't actually an actual decision of yours. And oftentimes we blame the storms, don't we, in our lives? Like, I had no control over that. Well, I would tell you, if you break off from Jesus, perhaps it was a storm, but how were you abiding before that? What are you attached to? Jesus, he gives us the answer. You just need a moment with it. Just abide in me. Attached to me. Abide in me and I in you, as the branch cannot bear fruit of itself. It cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine. So neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him, he bears much fruit, for apart from me, you can do nothing. Let me help you. Okay. Let's say some of you are like, you know what, David, I want to bring that branch back to life. So what if I said, hey, all year long, all year long, just for example, I'm going to set this on the stage, and every day I'm going to come into the auditorium and I'm going to play it the most incredible playlist ever. I am going to inspire this branch to grow like the most amazing thing. You do know that it will not do anything to the branch? Some of you don't grow things, and you're like, okay. I can show YouTube videos. I don't know if you've ever tried to get inspired and you go to YouTube and you watch these inspirational videos. I could show all. I could lay $1 million, if I had $1 million, on top of the branch, and I say, hey, grow. Are we all clear that this thing will not grow if it's not abiding in the right thing? And Jesus just said that. Pay attention to how you're growing. And he says, guess what? If you do not abide in me, you will not bear the fruit that you want to. If you're wondering, is he just creating rules? No, actually, just as the Father has loved me, I have also loved you. Abide in my life, in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and I abide in his love. Watch this. These things I have spoken to you so that. If you're wondering, like, oh, so I'll have to be religious, and that's why he wants me to spend time with him and attach to him, and so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be made full. I think you want joy. I know I do. I hate faking it. I hate getting up like, how you doing, David? I'm amazing. Do you ever feel like you want to be happy, but you aren't? You want to actually engage the day and say, this has hope. There's good things going to happen today. Do you ever want that to be real rather than faked? Well, Jesus said, if you want it to be real, and if you really want to have joy, like real joy, pay attention to what you're attached to. And he says, you better be attached to me. Abide in me. The lesson here? Never underestimate the impact of our attachments. Never underestimate the daily things that you're letting fuel you, or can we say, drain you. Do you understand that you and I will all, I'm hoping at least, will all agree that if I just leave this on the stage, that it's not going to grow? Most of us are like, yeah, nothing's going to happen to that. Most of us understand that these things will eventually turn a different color. They'll eventually fall off. And you're like, the thing's going to be as dead can be, right? You and I believe that. Why don't we also believe it about ourselves? Even though God said, you want to know about me? One of the ways is through creation. So I hope this year you and I will pay attention to what we're abiding in, not just the fruit. In fact, he talked more about fruit. You can identify them by their fruit. Okay. That is by the way they act. Do you know that we act based on what we're abiding and what we're connected to? Can you pick grapes from thorn bushes? No, if you don't grow things, which I don't, but if you're like, I don't read the Bible, the answer is no. Or figs from thistles? No. A good tree produces good fruit, and a bad tree produces bad fruit. A good tree can't produce bad fruit, and a bad tree can't produce good fruit. Some of us thought the Bible was confusing. It is not. Jesus said, you and I are the branch. This is us. If you want this to be good, stop worrying about this. Pay attention to what you're connected to. Pay attention to where you're abiding in. Pay attention to what you spend time watching, who you spend your time with. Most importantly, are you connected to God more than 1 hour a week? Pay attention to who you're abiding in. The fruit, the green, will take care of itself. So what do we do with this? Very simple. Fight the fade. Where we started, you fight the fade. Here, let me give you more. How do you fight the fade? Nourishment. Now, like I told you, I'm not really into plants. So the way I can connect this, just to help you if you're like, yeah, I don't grow things. I told you that I'm trying to be healthier. And I even hired a buddy, a trainer. And one of the first questions he asked, it was a stupid one. He said, how much water do you drink? I'm like, don't ask me that. Then I thought I'd be smart. I'm like in my sweet tea? How much water is in my sweet tea? No, he was asking about my water intake. And I'm like, well, I mean, like if you're asking me about clear water, yeah, that doesn't taste good. He's like, you're going to need to drink a lot of water. And I was the person who's like, I don't like the taste of water. I don't like that and this and that. Well, I started forcing myself to drink more water and drink water. And those of you who do this, you understand what happens. Something tips over and you begin to crave it. See, if you actually begin to nourish yourself well, it becomes less difficult and actually you begin to crave it. If you ever think that you see someone who loves Jesus and they seem so passionate, perhaps it's not like mysterious. Maybe they just have been doing it long enough that they crave it. Crave that time with God. This fits with our relationship with God. How are you going to nourish your relationship with God this year? That's how you abide. Are you going to spend time reading about Him? You spend time with other people talking about Him? You going to spend time on the weekends gathering and in groups? How are you going to nourish? You have a choice. Right now, media makes it accessible every day. You could nourish this like crazy, but nourishment you know about, you know that right answer. Let me tell you the difficult one, how to fight the fade. Pruning. I hate this one. Pruning. Maybe you missed what Jesus said. For every branch in me that does not bear fruit, He takes away. Most of us are like, yeah, that's what you're afraid of. But can I just show you something that many of us just skip over, don't pay attention to? And every branch that bears fruit, every branch that bears fruit. In other words, if you're doing the right thing, yay! He prunes it. Have you ever wondered, why do bad things happen to good people? Well, sometimes it is the devil. Sometimes it's just you. Sometimes it's God saying, hey, you need to grow and you can grow through this, and so I'm going to allow this to happen, and He prunes us. It's not fun. You know another dumb thing my trainer said? He said I'm not supposed to have donuts. Really? I mean, donuts. I'm an American. So I've told you, if you're around, that on vacation this year, there's a Krispy Kreme where we vacation, and I love Krispy Kreme. I didn't go. And then I've continued. Well, I've had a couple donuts, but I told them that I had the donuts. Some things you got to cut out, don't you? Right? Well, this applies spiritually too, doesn't it? Why would it only be physical? Why does it only apply to plants or eating? No, it's spiritual. There's some things that you and we need to cut out this year. Things that are hurting your growth. Perhaps it's a dating relationship. Maybe it's a friendship. Maybe it's some things that you've been watching that you should not be watching. I don't know. Maybe it's things you're ingesting that you shouldn't be ingesting. Nourishment and pruning. Do not forget both. We will talk about this throughout the year. So let me give you maybe a better definition now of abide. Attachment to Jesus without fading. This is what we're going to go after all year long. How to be attached to Jesus and it not be a fad. How do we get beyond a spiritual high? How do we actually, not in a religious way, not in a legalistic way, how do we actually spend time with God continually without fading? Because I'll tell you, if you can get there, it's incredible. Because the storms will not knock you off the tree. So here's our first step. And some of you are not going to like this. I need you to be around for the next 7 weeks. Now, I know some of you are like, I can't. You've already got plans. You're going somewhere. You can't change them. Well, there's online. For those 7 weeks, you can pay attention and make sure you catch up. But over the next 7 weeks, we are going to spend time as a church in a way that we've not done it routinely. I'm going to talk about some things as a church that nourishment. And also, there's some things as a church that we need to cut out and stop doing. I'm going to share about that. We're going to get together and worship together in ways that we never have. It's a time I need you to give 7 weeks. People are like, is there some scientific thing, research behind 7 weeks? No, I studied this portion of the Bible, and it's going to take that long to teach it. So 7 weeks. I need you for 7 weeks. Would you be willing, just in your minds, think, can you continue without fading for the next 7 weeks? And if you've ever wondered about your purpose, I think we'll resolve that by the end of the 7 weeks. But you got to continue without fading. I hope if you don't have direction for 2019, that God just gave it to you. Perhaps it's the anchor word, abide. It's going to be awesome. Let me pray for you. God, thank you for gathering us. Thank you for letting us be a part of these moments that I think you talk directly to us. God, I want to thank you for just the simple words of direction that you give us at times where it's just one word that we're supposed to focus on and that we're supposed to dwell on. God, I pray for those who quit in 2018, who faded. God, we ask for your forgiveness. And we ask for new mercies, new strength. As we go into this new year, God, would you help us not fade this year? What is valuable to you, Lord, will you help us value it? But help us be a church that is a healthy church. There's a group of people that genuinely love you each and every day. We do love you, Lord. And we thank you for this time together. We pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
I love the word that Pastor David shared and just the idea of abiding and what that means. But for me, like as I thought about just the first step in that, maybe for you it's the word attached. Maybe you literally have not focused on being attached to Jesus and his love for you. And that starts with a conversation of saying, God, I want you in my life. I want you number one. I want to focus on that. And I would encourage you to take that next step. There are people in maroon shirts that say, here to serve, here to help. Find them right after service. If you want to have a conversation about baptism, there's somebody walking around, I have a Decided shirt, and they will help you take that next step. We want to see you take that next step, see you here the next 7 weeks, being a part of what's going on. Man, it's great to be here and be together with you today. You guys have an awesome, awesome day. Take care. Bye-bye.
I'm all right today. You're gonna find a way to cross and you're gonna get there. And I'm on fire today. Ain't no water here to calm or even put me out. I find a better way. Am I crazy or the wind is gonna blow me down? I'm gonna leave it all out there to dry. I'm gonna leave it all out there. I'm gonna leave it all out there to dry up. I'm gonna leave it all out there. You seem tired today. Were you up all night afraid of what the future might bring? I feel fine today. I had dreams of you in places I've not seen before. You get so carried away, like love is new, the body's first to touch you. This ain't a getaway. You build walls around your heart to try to lock it in. I'm gonna leave it all out there to dry. I'm gonna leave it all out there. I'm gonna leave it all out there to dry up. I'm gonna leave it all out there. And upon the wind it's carried over the cities and the plains. You got time, you're on the man, babe, and everybody wants the same. Everybody wants the same thing. I'm gonna leave it all out there said, lay me down in golden dandelions. 'Cause I've been waiting for this moment all my life. Follow me into the dark. Ooh. She said, lay me down in golden dandelions. 'Cause I've been waiting. Yeah, I've been waiting. 'Cause I've been waiting.
When you get the rhythm and words all make you cold. When they break it down, then this world is all you know. Hands up, you're working it, and then get yourself together. When you call the dominoes fall, it's time to go. Now I feel it so far away. You see the colors and all the kids going home. Night is crawling up to the day. I hear the birds ringing, the sirens all singing. Just wanna stay up all night with you. Just wanna stay up all night with you. There's nothing that I wouldn't rather do. Just wanna stay up all night with you. Don't wait for nothing now. Don't wait for nothing now. One, two, what you doing? I've been jumping through some hoops. Wanna get my body loose. Wanna tell you what to do. I've been running out of bounds like an animal struggling. Looking for a diamond. I'm trying, I'm fighting, riding in the rhythm now. I just wanna stay out all night. Wanna stay out all night with you. Just wanna stay up all night with you. Just wanna stay up all night with you. There's nothing that I wouldn't rather do. Just wanna stay up all night with you. Turn up, baby, yeah. If you don't really care, let me know that you're there. If you got the time, take it up there. Turn up, baby, yeah. Living out on a prayer. Let me know that you're there. If you got the time, take it up there. Up all night with you. If you don't really care, let me know that you're there. If you take it up there. Up all night with you.
Let's go down to Jericho now and dip our feet in the river. I'm sick of rolling round the silicon soul like throwing stones at a mirror. I see it lurking, genuine American feel. It's your brother. God loves
just like Jesus. 'Cause in his presence there's freedom. All of our sin is forgiven. So we give to him the highest praise. It's the greatest feeling when you feel this place. And in this moment, you are moving as we give you praise. Come right now, Holy Spirit, release your power. Lord, we are hungry for more of you. Heaven's open, you're bursting through, filling this place like a rushing wind. Come and move again, like a fire within. We will burn, 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 burn. We will burn, to everybody that's hurting, here comes the sound of rejoicing. Our happiness he's restoring, so we give to him the highest praise. It's the greatest feeling when you feel this place. And in this moment, you're moving as we give you praise. Come right now, Holy Spirit, release your power. Lord, we are hungry for more of you. Heaven's open, you're bursting through, filling this place like a rushing wind. Come and move again, like a fire within. We will burn, 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 we will burn, We raise our hands up, we're going all out. We're lifting up the name of Jesus. Nothing will stop us, singing your praises. Your Holy Spirit is here, like a rushing wind. Come and move again, like a fire within. We will burn, 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 burn. We raise our hands up. We raise our hands up. And we give you all the praise. We raise our hands up. Yeah. We raise our hands up. Looking out my window, there's no doubt about it. We don't belong in this world. Be better off without us. Madness and destruction, maybe that is just who we are. The universe is mostly made of nothing. Isn't it so beautifully bizarre that here we are, watching the wind blow, watching the wind blow, watching the rain so hard, watching the fire getting higher on this strange Not a soul up ahead and nothing behind. There's a desert in my blood and a storm in your eyes. Am I the king of nothing at all? And you're the queen of nothing at all. Well, I remember the fight and I forget the pain. I got my hand in your pocket and my key in your chain. Am I the king of nothing at all? Then you're the queen of nothing at all. Oh, through the wilderness, you and I, we're walking through the emptiness. Oh, my heart is a mess. Is it the only defense against the wilderness? Will cross my heart and hope to die, taking this one step at a time. Got your back if you got mine. Oh, one foot in front of the other. 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 Ooh, all we have is each other. One foot in front of the other. Not a soul on the road, not a star in the sky. It's a desert in my heart and I know where to hide. I'm the king of nothing at all, and you're my queen of nothing at all. Well, out here in the dust, if you don't have trust, ain't nothing left of us. This is the exodus. They just testing us. They can't flex with us. They can't mess with us. They can't mess with us. Through the wilderness, how come even together there can be loneliness? Our heart's a mess, but it's our only defense to brave the wilderness. Across my heart and hope to die, taking this one step at a time. I got your back if you got mine. Oh, one foot in front of the other. 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 Ooh, all we have is each other. One foot in front of the other. Out here in the dust. Through the wilderness, how come even together there can be loneliness? Our heart's a mess, but it's our only defense to brave the wilderness. Cross my heart and hope to die, taking this one step at a time. I got your back if you got mine. One foot in front of the other. 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 Ooh, all we have is each other. One foot in front of the other. In the so-called land of the free. One foot in front of the other.
yourself like you only live once. You got one time to figure it out, one time to twist it, one time to shout, one time to think. And I say beside now, sing it with me if you know what I'm talking about. Gangsters don't cry, therefore I am Mr. Misty Eye, therefore I am. Can you say it? Can you say it? Can you say it? If that is so, can you say it? Can you say it? Can you say it? If that is so, for me. Can you say it? If that is so, for me. Can you say it? If that is so. Death inspires me like a dog inspires a rabbit. Death inspires me like a dog inspires a rabbit. Can you save? Can you save my? Can you save my heavy dirty soul? Can you save? Can you save my? Can you save my heavy dirty soul? For me. For me. Can you save my heavy dirty soul? For me. For me. Can you save my heavy dirty soul?
When I was searching, your love was never far. You made a way to get to me. You were the whisper leading me to your heart. Forever I belong to you. Now I can see clearly, my God, you for me. You won't let go. Your love won't let me down. And I know it's true. Yeah, I know that your love is all around. I believe in you, holding on to you, holding on, and I know you will never fail. I want all of you, you never change. Your love won't let me down. Love won't let me down. Love won't let me. Love won't let me. Right when I need you, you listen as I pray. You leave the 99 for me. You paint the sky with promises of your grace. So I will find my way to you. Now I can see clearly, my God, you for me. You won't let go. Your love won't let me down. And I know it's true. Yeah, I know that your love is all around. I believe in you, holding on to you, holding on, and I know you will never fail. I want all of you, with you, you'll never change. Your love won't let me down. Love won't let me.
Look at the stars in the sky. We are here lost in the night, like a child who's been kissed by the dark. It hurts like a hole in a heart. There's something you should know. I die before I let you go. I work my fingers to the bone to follow the line of day. All the things that we've been told, we will never let them go. All the dreams for us to go, we will never let them beat us. All the things that we've been told, we will never let them go. All the dreams for us to go, we will never let them beat us.
got rage every day on the inside. The only thing I do is sit around and kill time. I'm trying to blow out the pilot light. I'm trying to blow out the light. I'm just young enough to still believe, but young enough not to know what to believe in. Young enough not to know what to believe. If I can live through this, if I can live through this, if I can live through this, I can do anything. If I can live through this, if I can live through this, if I can live through this, I can do anything. Champion, I can do anything. Champion, champion, and I can do anything. Champion, champion, and I can do anything. Champion, champion, I can do anything. If I can live through this, if I can live through this, if I can live through this, and I can do anything. I can do anything. I can do anything, anything. If I can live through this, if I can live through this, if I can live, if I can live, if I can live through this, I can do anything. I can do anything. I can do anything. I can do anything. Champion.
Am I impatient? Am I untreatable? So sick of waiting. I need to taste it all. This hesitation is so uncomfortable. I need to waste it. 'Cause I've been here before. Won't you hold me back? 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 Big moon in a habitat. Lift me up and throw me back all over again. Oh, won't you hold me back? Big moon is a habit that shows me that I'm open and I'm folded again. Oh. No, I'm not wasted. I'm only wasting away. The tide's tainted, but I can face the break. I'll call you baby, 'cause I don't know your name. And if you're with me, I'll only dream you again. Won't you hold me back? 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 Big moon in a habitat. Lift me up and throw me back all over again. Oh, won't you hold me back? Big moon is a habit that shows me that I'm open and I'm folded again. Oh, let's leave it till morning. Or we could turn it back. We could turn it back. If you leave in the morning, oh, don't you turn your back. Don't you turn your back.